Hi, everyone, and welcome to MomBod Fitness. Today, I'm super excited because I'm finally going to be diving into all things fertility with you. This is a topic that's really close to my heart, and I've been growing my knowledge and understanding around this area for the last several years. And it's one of those things that I just find is really misunderstood, but it's so important. And I want you to have the knowledge that you need to understand your body and to advocate for yourself. So, today, we're going to be diving into some myths. Here's the truth that I've discovered and why this is so important to me. Most of us really don't know anything about how our bodies work. I said it, I'm serious. You wouldn't believe how little you actually know until you learn it. And you're like, why wasn't I taught this? I've worked with a lot of women, and I've seen things that could have been avoided if we all had a better understanding of our cycles and our fertility. I want to change that. So let's talk about it. Let's start with some of the biggest things I've noticed in my work that really opened my eyes. And trust me, I think they might open yours too. These are the things that I've seen in my practice, and I really want to get them out in the open because maybe you've experienced them yourself. So first, let's talk about fertility treatments and antibiotics. I cannot tell you how many women I've worked with who have gone through fertility treatments or taken antibiotics for issues they didn't even have just because they couldn't properly interpret the signals from their own bodies, like their cervical fluid. If you can read these signs and understand what's happening, you can start understanding what's going on inside your body and avoid unnecessary stress and treatments and doctor's visits and all of those things that you may not actually need. Then there's this idea of tracking your cycle with an app. And I've seen so many women who couldn't conceive because they were timing their sex according to an app that was based on averages rather than what's actually going on in their body at the time. And they had no idea that it even could be different than what the app predicted. This goes for people who are trying to avoid pregnancy as well as those who are trying to conceive. I've seen mistakes both ways, and both are devastating. You really can't rely on an app alone because your body is unique, and you have to understand what's going on in your cycle if you really want to understand your fertility. Now, finally, let's talk about PCOS and endometriosis. So these are two of the most common conditions I've seen women struggle with for far too long. They haven't gotten the care they needed because they didn't have the knowledge or the confidence to advocate for themselves to their providers. So they were told by their doctors that everything looked fine, and they've been struggling with symptoms for years and years. But we're going to change that because it is time to get the education and support you deserve to be able to understand what's going on, advocate for yourself, and get your body in the best possible shape that it can be. So now I want to do some quick and dirty myth busting around fertility and menstrual health. And I'm telling you guys, this is vital stuff. So if you are new to fertility or menstrual health, or even if you've been in the kind of TTC fertility world for a while, pay close attention to these. Number one, most women ovulate on day 14 and have a textbook 28-day cycle. This is just blatantly untrue. The day 14, 28-day cycle thing is just an average, which means that most people will fall on one side or the other of this. There are very few people that actually consistently ovulate on day 14 and have 28 days long cycles. So if that's what you're planning on when you're either trying to avoid or conceive, you're going to be really confused and think maybe something's wrong, when actually you might just have a cycle that works a little differently. You might ovulate a little bit earlier than that, which means that if you're trying to conceive, you might miss your window because you're waiting for this day 14 ovulation and you've already ovulated a week earlier. Or if you're avoiding pregnancy, obviously, that would be a big problem. On the other side of it, you could ovulate a little bit later. So you're waiting and waiting on your period thinking that you've missed it. And maybe that's where it super stresses you out. Maybe it excites you, but then you keep getting negative pregnancy tests and you don't understand what's going on with your body when really you maybe haven't even ovulated yet. So understanding your cycle, how it actually works for you, and understanding how to tell when you're fertile, how to tell when you've ovulated, and how to predict when your period is actually going to come, hugely freeing and useful. Myth number two, all discharge is the same. So I actually hate using this word discharge, but I'm just using it because that's what a lot of people learn in health class. The fact is, it's not all the same. It changes throughout your cycle, and those changes mean something. Cervical fluid is actually one of your best indicators of fertility, and it can also tell you a lot about what's going on with your hormones and what's going on in your body, so you can figure out when you may need help and when things are progressing just as they should be. So if you are paying attention, your body will give you clues as to what's going on. This is really important to be able to identify when in your cycle you can actually conceive. Number 3, you can get pregnant at any point in your cycle. I think this myth comes out of all of the anti-teen pregnancy rhetoric that's out there. And we're like scared into this thought that at any moment, if we slip up, we could get pregnant at any time. And I get why it's presented that way, but the fact is that's just absolutely not true. Men are fertile every single day, but women are actually only fertile for a short period of their cycle, maybe only a maximum of a week. If you are looking to avoid pregnancy or to conceive, it's really important to know when that is, because then you're avoiding unnecessary stress, fear, and confusion, no matter what the apps say. Understanding your window of fertility will give you a way clearer picture of what's going on with your body. All right, myth number 4. If you're bleeding every month, it must mean that you are ovulating. So I get where this comes from, because technically, if you are menstruating, it means you're ovulating, right? If you have a menstrual period, that doesn't happen unless you've released an egg that didn't get fertilized. But the problem is there are kinds of bleeding called breakthrough bleeding that can simulate a period. And it's really hard to know the difference if you're not tracking the other signs of your body to see if you actually ovulated. If you're trying to avoid pregnancy or you don't care about getting pregnant, that's fine. But ovulation is actually really important for your health. Menstrual health is really an important indicator of what's going on in your body, how your hormone balance is, that everything is functioning properly. So you really want to get this figured out. That's why it's so important to learn the signs to be able to figure out if you're actually ovulating and whether that bleed is actually a menstrual cycle so that things are working as they should. And finally, myth number 5, that you can predict your fertile window based on when you ovulated in previous months. Now, this is the foundation of what's called the rhythm method, and it's what a lot of apps will use. If you're consistently entering in when your period is each month, they aggregate all of that data and they try to predict when you might be likely to ovulate in the coming month. The problem is that lots of things can affect when ovulation actually happens. Sickness, stress, exercise, changes in your diet, lots of things can signal to your body that now is not maybe a good time to ovulate, or that maybe it's going to ovulate sooner. If you're just going by this like rhythm and hoping that you at the same time every single month, you might actually really miss out on when your body is fertile, which could have some pretty devastating consequences. So instead, being able to read your signals and understand what your body is doing and compare it to your past patterns so you can see if there are any concerning changes that you need to be aware of, that's where the magic is. An app can't tell you that. Just guessing based on what's happened in previous months can't tell you that. This is why it's so important to really take charge, get this information, and understand what's going on in your body. I know that I keep saying, oh, it's important to be able to read the signals and you'll be able to interpret this fluid and whatever. It sounds like it's really complicated, like it's going to be a lot of work and maybe it's going to be a little gross. But I promise, it's actually very simple. There are really only 3 things that you will need to pay attention to understand what's going on in your body. And I think all of us are pretty capable of doing that for a few minutes a day. Once you learn the rules, it's like riding a bike. It's really not that complicated. What do you think? Were any of these myths surprising to you? Did any of them spark questions or make you rethink what you've been taught about your fertility and your cycle? I definitely want to hear, so please drop a comment below and let's get the conversation started. Share your thoughts, ask questions, and let's dive deeper into this topic. So make sure you subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and you can go ahead and visit the links in the description to see the forum that I've set up where we can talk about all things fertility, menstrual health. There are also forums for pregnancy and postpartum. And I just want to share as much information as I can so that all of the women around me are empowered to understand their bodies and to advocate for themselves. So make sure you're subscribed, dive deeper into this subject in those forum links, and stay tuned for more videos. Thank you so much for being here. I'll talk to you next time.